For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. My name is Jeremy Bradley, and this is The Scribble. We've actually got a supersized Scribble this week. 2 hours, and it's coronavirus entertainment at its finest. Thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com on your favorite podcast app and at isolationlounge.com. Today's show is brought to you by Happy Bulge Swim Company, the sexiest men's swimwear that shows off your bulging assets. It's not just about looking good, it's also about feeling good. Check out the latest men's swimwear and workout shorts at happybulge.com. Browse, shop, and smile with Happy Bulge Swim Company at happybulge.com. Your man parts will thank you. We've got a lot of star power on the show today. Dr. Phil is going to give our relationships a checkup because, again, in lockdown, we're around our family members way more than we ever should be. Dr. Oz has a health update as well. What's the difference between a flu and coronavirus? We hear it all the time. Supernanny has a message for parents and kids. Great messaging for families as how we can all cope. Everybody's talking about that homeschooling thing, right? Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, has some tips for your pooch in the household. Bob Harper from The Biggest Loser has fitness tips on how we can stay active and eat right when we're in lockdown. Keep our figures right. Ben Mulroney from CTV's E-Talk will share some of his streaming and watching ideas, right? He is the entertainment guru in Canada, so Ben Mulroney has a bit to say about what's keeping him entertained. And comedian Wendy Liebman will be joining us because we just need some laughs right now, don't we? Sit back, relax, because it's a 2-hour supersized Scribble, and it all starts right now.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
You know, with everybody on edge thanks to the coronavirus updates that are non-stop, I thought that we should talk to an expert on how to get through these tough times. Dr. Phil McGraw is joining us on the line. Hi, Dr. Phil.
Well, how are you? Good to talk to you.
Well, I'm good. You know what? I think we're all sort of experiencing something that we never thought we would have to, right?
Well, this is not something anybody had on the horizon, of course. We've all seen the movies that have been out about bioweapons and things like that, but for this to impact so many countries and then to be so pervasive, we've just really shut the world down at this point. Nobody was psychologically, emotionally, economically, in any way prepared for something like this, and that's part of the problem. Is it's we're just not prepared for it, so we're a little bit in shock.
And this is one of those scenarios where we look to other people for our comfort and to be, consoled and reassured, but yet we can't necessarily have that physical hug that we might need or that closeness. So it's really testing people's relationships in recent weeks.
Well, it really does. Anytime we've had a disaster in the past, a hurricane or floods or whatever, everybody comes together, right? They bond. They meet in the gymnasium. They have town hall meetings and talk about what to do. But here it's exactly the opposite. The social distancing is actually physical distancing, and so there's a great degree of loneliness that has set in with so many people, and that's a different challenge, because one of the things that really has bothered me, Jeremy, is that we're talking so much about this virus and does to our bodies and all, but nobody is really talking about the mental impact of this, and I am definitely concerned that the effects of depression, anxiety, loneliness, suicide, the stress, erosion on the body, all of this can accumulate to actually have its profound effect on overall health and even death count than the virus itself, because the connection between how the body responds to stress and these demands is not a speculation. It is very clear. When you're under prolonged stress, chronic stress, depression and anxiety, you are at much higher risk for everything from dementia with the elder population to cardiac disease to diabetes to all sorts of diseases become much more prevalent. So, and we, of course, deplete our immune system, which makes us more susceptible to contracting this particular disease. So the mental emotional aspects of this are being greatly overlooked, in my opinion, and they have a profound effect on the outcome.
So what is the, I don't want to use the word trick or secret, but what is, I mean, like you say, we're battling the fears of not being able to pay the bills, not going out and be near people. I don't want to go to the grocery store because I'll get sick and potentially die. I mean, how do we get through it mentally? What do we say to ourselves? What do we do when we're isolated like that?
Well, you're asking exactly the right question. And when you say, what do we say to ourselves? Because we, as individuals, and our bodies physiologically react not to reality, but what we say to ourselves about what's going on. And we need to be careful that we don't obsess with the media, because, look, nobody ever goes on the news and says, today at noon, nothing happened at 3rd and Elm.
Right.
What they do is they report the news that is sensational, the news that gets people's attention. So there's a natural bias built in. They talk about the attention-getting aspects of this crisis. And the fact of the matter is that 85% of the people that get this disorder have mild to moderate symptoms. And they're going to have it and then get back to their life. What that tells us is that most of the people that get this disorder are going to have mild to moderate symptoms. They're not going to go to the hospital. They're going to be sick for 4 or 5 days. Then they're going to feel a little better, and within 10 days, they're going to be back to normal and back to their lives. So we can't think about this as being a death sentence. And sometimes our anxiety builds up to the point that our reaction is disproportionate to the threat. And I don't say that to trivialize or minimize this disease, because it should not be minimized or trivialized. It is a serious disease, and it has a much higher lethality rate than influenza. It's not as bad as SARS, but it's much higher than influenza, and we have to be careful what we say to ourselves. And we have these 24-hour news channels now, and it's so easy to just get obsessed with locking onto these channels, and you just hear death and destruction. And that's not the primary effect of this disorder. The primary effect is you'll be sick for a while and get back to your life. The reason we're shutting the world down is to protect that 20% that are at risk. The elderly people with underlying diseases that can make them so susceptible. We're doing it to protect those people, as well we should. Now, it does affect young people, true. There are deaths among the young people. As much as 12% of people from 20 to 40 are winding up in ICU, but it is still a smaller percentage. But we just need to be careful what we say to ourselves and deal with the facts and not hysteria.
Obviously, it's important for people to stay up to date with news and important, public notices and restrictions or what have you. What's your recommendation for staying in the loop, watching the news once a day? What would you suggest?
Well, another great question. And I think there's 2 things that we have to do. Number one, we have to pick our sources very carefully. And I wish the politicians would just shut up. They do not know what they're talking about. They need to let the scientists speak. They need to let the physicians speak. The infectious disease experts, the public health experts, do the talking and projecting, and stop trying to spin this for political reasons. So you have to choose your sources very, very carefully, and those are not politicians. Those are people like the CDC and the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, like Dr. Fauci. He's the head of that. Choose your sources and focus only on them. And I think it's important that we limit our time getting information even there. Check in the morning, find out what's happening, and then check in again in the afternoon or the late afternoon or early evening. So you maybe check in 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes around 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And the rest of the time, we need to focus on other things. We need to focus on family. We need to focus on health. We need to focus on things that have nothing to do with this, so we don't become so obsessed.
We should be focusing on relationships with with our partners, with our kids. I know that you're also paying attention to divorces and trouble in relationships right now.
Well, I am, because we're seeing the numbers come out of China, and the Chinese culture and the American culture are certainly not parallel, but relationships are pretty universal. And I'm looking at what's happening in China because they're just further down the road than we are, and we're seeing a tremendous spike in divorce petitions in China because people are being isolated and forced to spend a lot of time together. And when you're under stress, you're under pressure, so you're worried and you're concerned, then that puts you on edge and you tend to overreact to things. So you're with your partner, and little things that maybe were kind of minor irritants to you before, now you're on edge and they really set you off, and you tend to overreact. And so I think we do have to say, look, we're couples in crisis right now, and I've seen a lot of problems because husband and wife see the challenge different right now. Husband may not take it as seriously as the wife does, so she's nagging him to be more compliant with social distancing, and he thinks she's being controlling, and so they get into these problems and conflicts that they wouldn't ordinarily have if they weren't spending so much time together. We've adjusted our lives to X percentage of time together, and now we're 5X time together, and we're just not prepared to handle that. So I think the easiest way to deal with that is to sit down and acknowledge it and say, look, let's not pretend that this is natural. Let's acknowledge the fact that we are spending more time together than we're used to. We are on edge. We are going to get on each other's nerves. So let's just talk about it. Let's talk about how we can wire around this. Maybe we need to recognize we need to give each other physical space. We need to give each other emotional space. We need to agree that we're going to walk away. We're going to go over the rules of fighting fair. We're going to talk about how to actually manage this instead of just pretend that it isn't a reality, because it is.
The other relationship is parents with kids, right? School is out, so the kids aren't in the classroom for so many hours a day, and parents are really having to be, I guess, full-time parents. What's the balance of parenting and becoming a teacher now?
Yeah, that is really a problem because at home there are so many distractions. Home is where the kids usually relax and play, and now all of a sudden they have these homeschool curriculums, and they're bucking against it because they have so many triggers at home. And look, most parents aren't teachers. They're just not. I didn't have to do it, and I certainly wasn't a teacher. I didn't have the teacher's temperament, organizational skills for that sort of thing, and it's your own child. And I talked to a couple, it's going to be on a show that we air next week, that has 4 kids at home under 12 and an 11-month-old baby that is requiring some very serious surgery, and they're both out of work now, both isolated at home. Pressure is building. They have 1 computer and 4 kids in 4 different grades, and they're having to try to get all of their lesson plans and do all this homeschooling, and there's just not enough computer time. There's not enough broadband. bandwidth. There's not enough time in the day, and it's really creating a lot of stress and pressure. And what I say to parents is, we've got to enlist our kids to be more active in managing this crisis. Look, kids have arms and legs. They can pick up their rooms. They can make their beds. They can make themselves a sandwich. They can actually help in this situation instead of sitting on the couch playing a video game. We've got to enlist them. They need to be part of the solution instead of all of the problem. So we've got to realize that this is a new challenge for everybody. The kids are going to have to step up and help.
And finally, we've seen some really despicable actions that people have taken. I know, the toilet seat licker, and then the person who ruined all the groceries and the produce. Why do people do this?
We really have a disproportionate percentage of this current young generation that are narcissistic. And I don't mean that to try and be ugly. I just mean, look, this is the YouTube generation, the TikTok, Instagram generation, where people think that they have to have an audience for everything. It's like they're brushing their teeth. They feel like they have to post it. And they measure their self-worth as a function of likes and how many views they get on something. And people have just lost their way in saying, look, I'll do whatever it takes to get attention. I'll do whatever it takes to get followers, to get likes, to get views to what I'm doing. And so they just have really poor judgment, and they just try to go more outrageous than the person before, thinking that it doesn't matter why they're looking at me as long as they are. We used to say there's no bad publicity. But this is their version of it. It doesn't matter if they're clicking to hate me or love me, as long as they're clicking. And that is so wrong, because, look, these young people, like you're talking about this toilet licker, I talked to her. The day's going to come where she goes to apply for a job or try to get into graduate school or something. The admissions committee or the HR department is going to pull up everything about her on the internet, and they're going to see this stuff and say, I'm sorry, we just don't want to be affiliated with somebody that has that poor judgment. They don't realize that this stuff is out there forever. It's terrible that they're doing this, but it's all to get attention.
So really, some people shouldn't leave their house, is what you're saying.
Yeah, some people should unplug. And I also think we should have a breathalyzer on computers. I mean, people ought to have to blow sober before they can get to the keyboard, because I'm sure it seems like a good idea at the time, about 2 in the morning sometimes, but It's sure hard to take back at noon the next day, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, we're all having to adapt to this isolation thing. I know you're broadcasting from your kitchen, right?
I am, and CBS came in, as they well should have, and said, look, everybody needs to shut down here. We have 300 people on our staff, and we had 500 audience members a day. And they said, look, we can't do this. This is congregating, and it's going to spread this. And I agreed 100%. They said, look, we just need to call it quits for the year. And what I thought to myself was, look, this is the biggest challenge that we've been in since 9/11. The North American continent, and I thought, this is the last time that Dr. Phil should disappear. This is the time I need to be talking every day and helping people think through this stuff. So I said, okay, I'm not very technologically savvy, but I sure have people around me that are. So I am shooting from my kitchen without one single staff member there. I'm using Zoom and iPhones and iPads and all sorts of things, and my staff is working from their houses around the town, and even some people in New York and Texas, and so we're able to do it. So it doesn't look great, but I've never been under the impression that people are tuning in to see me. I look like an old catcher Smith. They're tuning in to hear what I have to say. So it's working well. We're shooting from the kitchen and getting the message out. I think it's working okay.
Absolutely. It's much needed right now. And they're tuning in to see your gorgeous wife. Come on. I mean, that's...
Yes. She does dress up the frame, I'll say that.
All right, we're going to be watching. We always love the information, Dr. Phil. Check your local listings, everybody. Dr. Phil McGraw, thanks so much for joining us. Stay safe out there.
Jeremy, thanks for having me. We'll talk to you soon.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Let's get to some medical information about coronavirus, and someone who's always making it easy for us to understand our health and our body is Dr. Oz, and he's joining us on the line right now. Hi, Doctor.
How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, well, thanks for joining us. I know you've been making the rounds and helping everyone, so I figured, you know what, I'll give it a shot and see if you can answer some of my questions.
Take it away.
Okay, so let me start at the beginning, because a lot of times we heard that people are saying this is the flu, and it's flu-like. How is it decided if this is fluier than the flu? Like, does that make sense? What's the difference between flu and coronavirus?
Well, they're both viruses, but they are very different viruses. The flu came out of probably animals infecting us like swine flu, avian flu, and so this becomes a cousin of those. It comes around every year. It changes and mutates pretty rapidly. Not that dangerous, but dangerous enough that it kills 40,000 people a year in this country alone.
Sure.
And because it's infectious but not overly infectious, we have to watch ourselves, but you don't shut down society. The coronavirus, this particular version, which causes COVID-19, is extraordinarily infectious. So just to give you some numbers, traditional flu, if I had it, I might pass it to 9 people in a week. With the coronavirus, I'll pass it to 45 people in a week. So you can see how much more rapidly it accelerates in a community. And because it doesn't show symptoms for a couple days, and often you're symptomatic a couple days after you're shedding virus, in other words, infectious, you'll actually contaminate a lot of people without realizing it. And the first person who came here from Europe who had this was an American who had been traveling, and he gave it, we believe, to at least 130 people, just directly. So
Right.
It's very difficult to slow that down, these aerosolized infections that pass just when you're talking with each other. And that's why this got on everyone's attention. Now, about a quarter of people have no symptoms. And they're really a concern because they can still pass virus infections, but they don't even know they're sick. And the older people who get this infection, especially if they have comorbidities, have a very high mortality rate. So when we talk about what happens after this pandemic surge passes through the hospital system, which I'm hoping will happen through this month, but be done, most of it, by the end of the month, we're going to have to be very smart about what happens to older Americans. It's a good chance we may ask them to shelter and avoid going out in public or in crowded areas for the year that it will take for us to find a vaccine.
If I'm experiencing symptoms of the flu, and, you know, everybody just says, I'm getting sick, right? I've got a cold, I've got the flu. We associate that, all those terms together. We know that the best way to be diagnosed is to be tested, obviously. But we hear of people self-diagnosing and then isolating to ride it out, I guess is the term. Is that recommended? I mean, if the symptoms go away after the 14 days or whatever the time period, am I in the clear? Or should I always still see a doctor?
You don't have to see a doctor unless you have shortness of breath or some other complication that's really gotten you scared. The problem with testing is we don't have enough.
Right.
And when testing has been done in other parts of the country outside of New York City, where I'm based, because I'm here in the epicenter, so I have a little different experience, it's 1 out of 10 positive. So most people are just having something that could be COVID, but they're not sure. They want to be careful, so they get tested. Whereas in New York City, we don't have enough tests, and for us, 1 in 3 people who test are positive. So the general rule of thumb, I tell my patients, is if you're feeling like you have the classic symptoms, which are fever, fatigue, a dry cough, intestinal problems are pretty common, right? Those complications, and by the way, loss of smell and taste is a very common sign, even though it's not dangerous.
Okay.
Those people just stay at home. Don't go outside. Don't contaminate people getting driven to my office. Don't contaminate people when you get to the office. All the things that you don't want to do, you'll be doing inadvertently. And if you're wrong and you don't have COVID-19, you'll probably get it on the way there. So just stay at home. Shelter yourself. It's not for 14 days, by the way. The general rule of thumb is a week since your symptoms started and 3 days since the symptoms went away. So if your fever is your main symptom, it's got to be 1 week from when your fever started, and then whenever your fever stops, go 3 days from then. Whichever's longer, that's your quarantine period. But the people around you, they're quarantined for 14 days. Because we don't know when they're going to get sick. It could happen in a week.
Right.
And then if you just do the math, that's another week after that, so it's 2 weeks.
All right, so there's so much talk in the news about vaccines, medications. I know you've chimed in as well, but I want to get really basic on this one. How is it decided, and I'm just making this up, how is it decided that a medication for an ear infection will help with COVID-19? Like, what are the experts looking for to make those connections?
Well, let's take hydroxychloroquine, because that's the one that's been in the news quite a bit recently.
Yeah.
This is an old malaria drug, approved in this country in 1955, prescribed 1 billion times around the world, thought to be pretty safe. These things have gotten politicized, obviously, but that's just the basic data. And it's given to 300,000 lupus patients a year in this country without lots of complications. So that's all nice and good. But why did they start studying it for COVID-19? Well, in China, when this epidemic first started, they noticed that patients coming into the hospital who had lupus, who were on this medication, of the first 80 patients that they kept track of, none of them had COVID-19. This is in the middle of a pandemic. And lupus patients should be more at risk of infection, not less. And then they noticed that none of the COVID-19 patients had lupus with hydroxychloroquine on board. So then they began thinking, well, maybe there's an association. So they did a clinical trial. They did a randomized trial, 62 patients. Half got the pill, half didn't get the pill. The people who got the pill, their fevers went away faster, their cough went away faster, and their pneumonias got better faster. So with that randomized data, they made this part of their handbook. Now in China, if you come in with this virus, that's how you get treated. You get a bunch of other things too, antibiotic as well, but you get this hydroxychloroquine. A very innovative, very famous French infectious disease specialist picked it up, this information, and I've been interviewing him. And his name is Didier Raoult. He actually spent 3.5 hours with the French leader Macron last night, going over this data with them. And this morning I got a report from him that outlined. So it's 1,061 patients, 5 people died out of the 1,061, and 10 went to the ICU. And 96% were free of an infection within 10 days, which he defines as success because it means they're not infectious anymore, to the earlier point we were making. And the part that really caught my attention, there were no real side effects of taking the medication, which is good because that's been a concern. And secondly, it's important, he noticed that blood pressure pills were correlated, not causing, but correlated with bad outcomes. And in particular, these particular family called angiotensin receptor blockers, that's the same receptor that the virus uses to get into our body. So there's something going on here. Is it the virus? Is it the medication's fault? Or is it the fact that people who respond well to that medication have these receptors so the virus takes advantage of it? We don't know. But it's nice to know that we might be able to target that as a solution.
So there's progress.
There's progress being made.
Okay, finally, let me ask you about your concerns. This hit about a few months ago. Do you have more concerns about it now or then? And what are your concerns going forward?
My concerns going forward are the reflex response now of our elected officials, and understandably so, is pull the emergency brake. But I think as we get past this current crisis, and we're not out of it yet, but as you get past it, we're going to have to give our elected officials more options in medicine than just that. And I think there's a triad of solutions. You have to have testing. I would say 750,000 a week at least of tests so that we can quickly assess whether people are affected or not and quarantine them. We have to have an aggressive public health initiative to make sure people who are tested positive have some way of not contaminating everyone else they know while they're being quarantined. And we have to go after the people who they were in contact with for the prior couple days to make sure they're quarantined as well so we can contain these infections. And finally, we have to make sure our healthcare system is able to accommodate an influx of sick people in case we miss the target and we end up with outbreaks. So keep the brush fire small, but if it does tend to spread beyond that, we need a safety net to catch us.
Well, always some great, easy-to-digest information is what I call it. I know you're a busy guy, but I want to remind everybody to watch Dr. Oz on TV, of course, right? Check your local listings, everybody. Dr. Mehmet Oz, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
And one last thing, we have a lot of information on droz.com, and we're looking for dialysis nurses. I put all the information there. I'm also looking for any patients who have lupus, who are on this medication. Let me know if you have COVID-19, because it helps me advance the insight. So please stay in touch with us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, and stay safe, Dr. Oz.
Same to you. Take care.
Let's talk parenting now. And, earlier Dr. Phil told us that parents aren't teachers, but with everybody in lockdown, it looks like there's a role reversal happening. And my new drinking buddy, Supernanny Jo Frost, is joining us on the line to get your household in shape. Hey, Jo.
Hello.
Well, cheers to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've been doing the global tour. I know everybody's wanting your insight and help for parenting. So I guess what we're seeing is there's two issues here. Parents are having to double as teachers, and then there's parents having to tolerate their kids being around all the time.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's many issues right now, many, externally and internally. And what's most important is for us to recognize what we can control right now to keep ourselves safe and others in this pandemic. Most importantly, when we talk about homeschooling, as you've already heard, yes, families were up in arms several weeks ago in how they were going to actually take on the task of being able to do so. In actual fact, Jeremy, there were some really funny memes that were out regarding this situation. I don't know if you saw them at all, but they were hilarious. The fact that how are we going to get through this? But, the truth of the matter is we're not homeschooling our children, We are at home in a crisis trying to homeschool. I just want families to think about that for a moment, because there's a very big difference. For all those parents who do homeschool, they'll know that it's very different to when we send our kids off on the yellow bus up to school. Homeschooling is far more organic, and although it has structure, there are less hours involved. So, you could see a child around sort of elementary age studying for like a couple of hours, middle school, maybe 2 to 3 hours, and high school 3 to 4 hours. It's very, very different. So I do think it's important, if parents haven't done already, to give themselves permission to recognise they will only do as good as they can, and at the end of the day, right now, with what we have going on in the world, that's good enough, We need to keep ourselves safe, our kids alive. And I want parents to feel in a space that they don't put more pressure on themselves, but to just show up, just to show up and not to give up, but to just do the best that you can today, and to recognise that that was enough. Because there's already enough stress on the family unit. There's already enough stress individually for everybody dealing with what they're hearing about constantly over and over again from one social media platform. And the way we create more calm in the eye of this storm as it peaks around the world, and the more we create more presence, we will ground ourselves better, we will center ourselves better, and then create a home environment for ourselves and our children that is more reassuring and safe, so that we are not in a space where we feel so overwhelmed that our thoughts start to take over and then create issues that become health issues for us. At at the end of the day, Jeremy, education is important, but it's not going to insulate us from the long-term mental health impact that this has if that becomes the be-all and the end-all. And I know that teachers right now, well, they're doing not what they signed up for. They're trying to see how they can keep in touch with their pupils. They miss their kids in their class. You know, they're doing the best that they can with different online classes and groups. I'm in the middle right now of looking after my 5.5 grandson. You know, there are online little group meetings for him and online classes for him to take. But at the end of the day, the importance of recognising that we will do the best through homeschool, and the rest we will recognise we can have conversations that may help us with teachers, and then to reside at that space, I think is good enough right now. I really do. I really do. You know, and I feel that with so much advice that's been such a contradiction right now in this country, and lies and an administration right now that is making Americans feel so uncertain about so much. When I review what's going on in Europe and review what's happening elsewhere, like London, we've got to be able to keep ourselves in a very sane space right now. And it's important for me to be able to give the truth and be honest to parents, at the same time help them in the best way that I possibly can, with not just the normal parental universal challenges that families are seeing, but the ones that are happening during their parenting in this pandemic as well, you know. And I think that's incredibly important for a lot of families to recognise. And that's not to scaremonger, but it is to say that right now there is no cure for this killer virus, and we know what it's doing to many, many families. So our priority is to make sure that we stay healthy, that mentally we don't put a lot of pressure on ourselves and expectations that are unrealistic. And it brings me to a space of recognising that a lot of families have gone into fight or flight or been delusioned from this all and have frozen. So I ask those families right now to focus on what their life goal is. You know, if you're not going to sit and really take in the gravity of what's happening here, after listening and seeing what's going on, I ask you right now to look at what that life goal is for yourself, because that's got to be the aim. The positive thought on what we want to accomplish and achieve when this subsides, when this goes, because it will go and we will get through this, and this is a phase, and no doubt it will be a longer phase than we think right now. But what's the accomplishment that you want to set your heart on achieving, or a personal goal that you'd like to do beyond this, so that is what gives you hope and motivation to keep going? Because I think that's incredibly important. But as I say, this is not to minimise the pandemic at all. Mm-hmm. But there are also a lot of silver linings from this circumstance with respect to, you know, I feel like Jeremy, like, to a degree, Mother Nature's put us on a timeout. They put us on a naughty step. It's like the world has gone, okay, guys, okay. So right now, the priorities are not where they should be. Not enough compassion, not enough empathy, not enough recognizing what's important that's going to make you all work together on this planet together. So you're all in time out. You're all on the naughty step. You've all got to stay indoors right now until you can figure this out. Until you can work out what those lessons are. And it really does feel like that. We've got families right now coming together, realizing that they've been able to teach their children something new. We've got teenagers feeling heard by their parents for the first time. And yes, we've got teenagers wondering what they're going to do with themselves because they're missing their boyfriends or their girlfriends, right? And they're not able to see them right now, and they're having to go on technology to socialise. And a lot of us professionals don't know what the impact of that will be later on. You know, will there be some that will suffer more anxiety or post-stress trauma? But the reality is, it's what can we do as a family to minimise that in our own home and to stay mentally healthy? Because after all, if we can keep ourselves mentally healthy, then I do believe that the rest certainly will feel a lot easier for us as each day we wake up with intention and purpose. I talk a lot about, when I help families on the Supernanny show, I talk a lot about routine and the importance of routine, because I do think it gives us a sense of purpose. You know, we have structure to our day. We wake up and we do the task of making our bed. It's important to get up and make your bed. Make your bed with a purpose, you know. Get up, make your bed. You've done one task. Then go into the kitchen, take the trash out. That's another task, right? Get things done. Get house chores done, get tasks done, get some education done as much as you can. Keep the routine flexible. Make sure you have the cornerstones in for meal times. You know, brings us all together as a family. Those numbers were declining, Jeremy, with families coming together and eating around the table. Now everyone's doing it for breakfast, lunch and dinner. You know, in our household right now, we have gratitude in the morning and we have it in the evening. We come around the table and hold hands. What are we grateful for today? I think it would be a wonderful practice and ritual for every family to be thankful. Because I believe that when we are with gratitude, I certainly believe that it's the heart of much happiness, and being able to look at the positive, you know, of what we do have. There are many right now. They're in a very different space, and for those that are in a very difficult space, what can we see? You know, what can we see today? As we acknowledge that so many are going, as we all are, through a difficult time, but there are those that have lost loved ones. And my sympathy goes out to those families, certainly who are grieving in that capacity, you know, and the key workers that are on the front line and those that are supporting us in all the other areas, for us, for you and I, to have that normalcy to that degree, you know. So I think it's incredibly important. It allows us to recognise what we have to let go of. That in itself, I think, is a real life lesson, recognising what we let go of and what we can't control, and surrendering to that process so that it becomes easier for us to adjust. The first 4 weeks, I'm going to say, of this all happening, my emails were off the charts, with families asking for help. Right now, you know, I'm providing a public service to any family that needs the help. They can go to jofrost.com and contact me there. It says Contact Jo, or to go on the Twitter and ask concise questions. And I'm giving my advice and help as much as I possibly can, spending hours on the phone helping different families and calling them. But again, I think it brings us to a space of, you know, recognising that in those first 4 weeks, you know, we were in fight or flight, right? Stockpiling, panic mode, panic, you know, fight or flight, go, fight, grab what we can. We saw that. And those that were frozen, is this really happening? This is really surreal. I can't believe this is happening. To the space now where, you know, 3 weeks have gone past now, and people are recognising that, okay, we're adjusting to this. What is our new norm right now? What does that consist of? So if we have routine, it's the first thing that we create as our new norm, right? We can be flexible with that like we always should do. You know, for those kids that are going to have pajama days twice a week, why not? It's important to be able to compromise. You know, children are the silent witnesses of what's going on right now. You know, not just the adults that are having a tough time, the parents, but the children are adjusting too, according to what age you're raising right now. But it does bring us to a place of being more mindful, and being present so that we don't let our feelings get away with ourselves, which could then lead to, a lot of panic and anxiety. And the importance of socializing. Right now, we can't. We're being told, no, we can't. We know that it's about saving our lives and others. So we have to use now technology for its true purpose. And that's to be able to use it for educational purposes, for connection with friends and family, loved ones, online, through one medium or the other, and for a little bit of entertainment as well, for some laughs, comedy, some movies, and not for the emotional crutch that it was used for, perhaps per se, before this all happened, where I would spend a lot of time going into families and helping them with those circumstances. But again, it still creates the importance of moderation and regulation, because the more we are using, what we don't want is to create addictive behaviour. So I would still say to families, it's a balance, even though it may be a little bit more. We don't want it to be an entire day, whereas you may have been doing it for an hour, it may be a couple of hours now, and recognising that we still have to put in those boundaries to create healthy patterns and healthy relationships with whatever we're using, I would also talk about the importance of eating well and movement. A lot of information with respect to everybody eating their stock in the pantry already. They've eaten all the food. Everybody worrying about, putting on weight and eating the food out of boredom. And again, it is important with what we can find to be creative. Again, now's the time that we're going to start to be creative with what we do have in our pantry and we can buy. And for all those families, and I would exempt those with special needs and sensory issues. But, again, a lot of those families that I would help that would tell me that their kids wouldn't eat. They'll only eat the dry food and the chips and the cookies in the pantry. They're about to find out right now that their kids are going to eat. They're going to eat the food that's in front of them because it's the only thing that they have in front of them. So, in a way, I think we had so much choice and very spoiled to some degree that I think that the pandemic has put a lot into prioritising the importance of what we need to focus on and to work through that. It's a time for families to, help their children with life skills and the younger ones with executive functioning skills, to be able to home in and tune in to our family and to really listen and ask our partners, what can I do for you? Is there anything that will make your day easier? Again, breeding this empathy and compassion for not just our family, but for others as well, in our neighbourhood, in our society, in our state, in our country. Together we are stronger, and together we need to be able to, step outside ourselves too, and to recognise how we help one another. I'm sure that makes sense, and you've seen that yourself, correct?
Absolutely. And you know what? This was the easiest interview ever. I didn't have to ask you a question. Supernanny Jo Frost, we're out of time, so let's get your social media out there so people can be in touch.
Yes, please. For any families who certainly need some help or have a question, do go to jofrost.com, where you will see it says Contact Jo, and drop me an email there. I am getting through as many phone calls as I possibly can to help families. And also on the Twitter, Jo_Frost. Obviously, we're subjected to characters, so if you could just write a very concise question, then it helps me to be able to answer that for you. But stay safe out there, everybody, and, remember your social distancing. It's very important right now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, as always, for being there for families. We certainly do appreciate it. Supernanny Jo Frost,
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
With everybody at home pretty much 24/7 lately, our pets must be wondering what the heck is going on. So I thought that we should talk to the master himself, the dog whisperer, Cesar Millan. He's joining us on the line. Hi, Cesar.
How are you? I'm glad that I'm able to share.
Well, you know what? Thanks so much for making the time. You know, when last you were on, you surprised me and you wanted to talk to my dog, but I'm hoping you'll talk to me this time.
Definitely.
Well, okay, so speaking of Ernie, I have two dogs, and one of the highlights of their day used to be when I would leave and go to the office, because they used to get a toy filled with treats as I made my escape. I think it relieved the separation anxiety, but now we've got this new routine where I'm not going anywhere in the morning. How is this affecting pets, this new routine?
Well, you know, naturally, dogs are supposed to be with the family pretty much 24/7. So for them to live life the way we live life here in America is actually not natural, right? Where the human have to detach, comes back, you know. So that's why I was always emphasizing with the exercise. Before you go to work, make sure your dog is tired so he can actually wait for you with no physical energy, you know. So now that dogs actually have their family with them 24/7, I think most people, at least to me, that always say, Cesar, I have no time. Well, now we have time for connection, communication, relationship. Most of my clients, you know, the trust, the respect was never at 100%. Love was always at 100%. Dog love achieved that. But, you know, through exercise and mental stimulation, that's how you achieve trust and respect. I think it's a perfect opportunity for people to really get into the whole 100% exercise, mental stimulation, affection, body, mind, heart. And a lot of people are doing exercise inside the house, you know, and it's most of the exercise we have to do are going to be more mentally driven. So we just released a video on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, where I show you how to challenge the mind of a dog by them learning to actually ignore smells.
Right. And, you know, you make a good point. This is one of those situations where we can't use the excuse of, oh, I've got so much running around to do. I've got to take the kids to swimming lessons. I've got to get to work. Now, you're at home. You got plenty of time for your dogs and your pets.
Exactly. So you have time for family. You know, we normally make time for work. We normally make time for school. So it allows us to develop our intellectual ability. But this one is where you have to understand instincts, where you have to understand love, where you have to understand spirituality. You know, so if you study third world countries that come, you know, from poverty, so this is pretty normal. You know, we have political crisis, we have economic crisis, we have education crisis, we have health crisis. So third world country people understand the concept of family, the calmness, doing activities together, helping each other. And, I always tell people, dogs in third world country are skinny, but they don't have psychological problems. Dogs in America are junky and they get to have a TV show. So here is a perfect opportunity for people to really connect to natural, simple, profound activities, because that's all you have right now. Thanks God we have water. Thanks God we have, food, shelter, and family. Now it comes down to activities.
And mine are, I guess a lot of dogs and pets are creatures of habit. They, the routine is something they just know. What does this do to them? Do they like the change? Like, what happens when this is all over and now I've got to go back and leave, 5 days a week or whatever it might be?
Well, again, you go back to what is the right thing to do, which is to do more physical exercise. Right now, you're going to end up doing a lot more mental exercise. It's like playing puzzles versus running. So when you go back into your routine of making money and getting out of the house and the modern type of lifestyle, you have to increase the physical exercise so your dogs can be by themselves with no energy to burn. So if the dog is tired, you're going to be able to leave home without them wanting to follow you because the body doesn't let them. So right now, obviously, a lot of people have to practice indoor behavior, so you have to focus more on what the mind, how to train the mind or how to actually get the mind tired. So the mind tells the body gets tired. The other way is the body tells the mind, we're tired, we have to rest. So you adapt. The dogs have this amazing ability to adapt. So don't worry about what kind of style of life you have. It's just understand how to work with the formula of exercise, mental stimulation, affection. Right now, we have to do more mental stimulation. Very little exercise, that people can do. And affection, is a given. Everybody does affection very well.
You always have such great tips and, for training and all those things on your website and social media. I'm going to challenge our listeners then. What's one thing they should either teach or train their dog while we're in lockdown? Like, what's one of the easiest things that we could do?
The easiest thing to do, listen, 60% of the brain, 60, okay, that is controlled by the nose. What controls us is the eyes. So Netflix is eyes. Marketing is, for the most part, is eyes. So in order for the human to buy something or to pay attention to something, you have to attract the eyes. So in order for the dog to actually have absolutely self-control, he needs to learn to ignore smells, especially food smells. So right now, it's a big word being thrown around, social distance. Well, a dog needs to keep a distance from food self-control. And most people don't have this type of discipline or this type of control because the nose will pick up on a scent, and then the dog moves to where the scent is, and then they grab it. So that's why a lot of times in Thanksgiving, people have to put the dog away in order for the dog not to, quote unquote, steal the turkey. So right now, you have a perfect time. And the video that I just did, it plays a perfect understanding of how you're going to achieve this and how important it is to make sure that we challenge the nose of a dog. The nose of a dog is what makes us different. I mean, we both need the same food, water, shelter, family. But the way we learn is different. Dogs learn nose, eyes, ears. The human is eyes, ears, nose.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a good point. So finally then, what is your favorite activity to do with the dogs when, there's nothing else going on? What's your favorite either playtime routine or what do you like to do?
Listen, before play, so it's three activities dogs must do, and they do with their own kind. So, they begin their journey with following. Once they follow, they find food and water. That's just a natural thing. And once they achieve, their work or their job, then they play or explore. So follow, play, explore. My favorite is to walk with them. Fish have to swim, birds have to fly, dogs have to walk. Before they play, all animals play, all animals explore. But the fish have to swim, the bird have to fly, and the dog have to walk. So through the walk, you achieve the bonding. Through the walk, you achieve the connection, the communication, and the relationship, which is trust, respect, and love. This is why homeless people, when they have a dog, they have such a well-mannered dog. They have a dog that walks off the leash. They have a dog that it can be in the corners. They have a dog that people can pass by and nobody have to worry about it because that dog is absolutely connected to that human because how often they walk. And so they don't just do like a 50-minute walk and I'm going to go take my dog so he can pee. They actually enter into a migration mode. And so to me, I know that when my dogs we go for a long walk, they are at their happiest state of mind, that I can provide. It's the same thing. If I can fly, I will definitely have I would take my birds for, fly with them. And so that, because that's what makes them, who they are.
And we've got to wrap this up, but I'm so glad that my dogs don't recognize your voice, because you keep saying WALK, and that would be sending them through the roof if they heard it.
A lot of people have told me, don't say this word.
You've been talking a lot about your YouTube page and social media, so where can people get some of this information? What are the links?
Well, Caesar's Way, that's definitely our Instagram and my YouTube channel, Cesar Millan. And it's definitely, my goal is education, definitely first and foremost, enlightenment. And, many people get entertained. So we got the 3 years going on there.
And here's what we're going to do, Cesar. Right after this, I'm gonna Instagram a picture to you of the dogs, okay? They'll say hi to you.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, the great dog whisperer himself, Cesar Millan, thanks so much for joining us. Stay safe. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Stay safe. God bless. Bye.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on this supersized Scribble, and thanks for tuning in at isolationlounge.com, because this is a 2-hour broadcast. I don't know that we've ever done one this long before, but it's brought to you by Happy Bulge Swim Company, the sexiest men's swimwear that shows off your bulging assets. It's not just about looking good, it's also about feeling good. Check out the latest men's swimwear and workout shorts at happybulge.com. Browse, shop, and smile with Happy Bulge Swim Company at happybulge.com. Your man parts will thank you. And with everybody in isolation, maybe your man parts need a bit of a smile. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we're going to hear from Bob Harper on The Biggest Loser, right? He's going to tell us how to keep fit and stay active while we're in lockdown at home. And my friend Ben Mulroney from CTV's eTalk will talk entertainment and what he's streaming, what he's watching, what he's listening to stay busy. And, he's got a family, and that's always interesting, right, when you've got the kids. So how are you keeping them busy? Ben Mulroney will talk about that coming up in just a little bit. But let's talk about this lockdown thing, because as the weeks go on, people are having to figure out how to adapt. And last night, I'm not kidding you, last night, had a few drinks. I was working up the courage all week to see if I could give myself a haircut. And so I went, I walked the dogs. It was a beautiful night out, walked the dogs, made a cocktail when I got home, and I said, okay, tonight is the night. Because I wanted to look good, for being on the radio, right, where you can't see me. And it didn't go too badly. It really didn't, quite honestly. I don't have a very difficult haircut, though. I just take, the razor, and I've got the number 6 on the top and number 4 on the side. See, it pays to listen to when they're cutting your hair in the barbershop or salon. Make note of the numbers on the razor blade things. I don't know what they're called. Have you been doing your hair? I would love to hear from you. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com. Better yet, if you have really effed up your hair trying to cut it, I want to see the pictures. I absolutely want to see the pictures. I could share my picture. To me, it doesn't, it didn't turn out badly. So if it was a disaster, absolutely I would show you pictures and really broadcast that to everybody just to have a laugh. But that's actually kind of the thing that I like right now about this whole lockdown thing, is that when you do go to the grocery store, when you do have to venture out, even though you're not supposed to, but for the necessities, it's great because it's like nobody cares what they look like. Right? Nobody's going full on makeup. You've got people just in sweats and, grubby clothing. And again, for me, I was either just putting on a hat or just not even caring, right? And just going out like that. And so that's something that's great. Maybe it's kind of giving all of us a reason to look at how vain we were before all of this happened, right? Don't you think? Anyway, feel free to give me a shout. I always love hearing your stories and, in this case, seeing your pictures as well. live@jbonair.com. Again, in this half hour, we're going to hear from Ben Mulroney from CTV's eTalk. And have you been eating and drinking as much as I have? Well, actually, I'm more drinking than anything. I find that I'm eating maybe one big meal a day and then just drinking the rest of it. What's the right way to do it? Is there a right way? Well, I think it's time to check in with our resident fitness expert. He was just on the radio with me during The Biggest Loser finale. It's time to go back to the celebrity phone. With everyone eating and drinking their weight in grease and vodka, I thought that we should check in with fitness expert Bob Harper. You remember him from The Biggest Loser and then our radio shows just a few weeks ago. He's joining us again. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Jeremy. It's so nice talking to you.
Well, I got to say, when last we spoke, I don't think this coronavirus thing was just ramping up, but I don't know that we were in lockdown just yet. Either way, people are confined to their homes. I'm hearing a lot of excuses that the gym is closed and I can't work out. I'm going to call BS on that. That's fake news, right? We can still work out.
I never like to use that phrase fake news, but I will agree with you on it this time.
All right. You're giving tips on social media. I've seen it. So let's talk about some of the basics that people can do. We don't need the big weight bench to stay active, right?
No, and I think the first thing that I would say is, especially right now, what really works for me is I have a routine. And I think that we're all very conditioned to get up and take our dogs for a walk, go to work, have lunch at a certain time, all these things. If you can try to recreate that routine as much as you can when you're in quarantine, I find it to be beneficial for my mental health as well as my physical health. Like, I know that I get up every morning, take the dogs out first, I have a coffee, I look through my my news feed, and then I do a workout. And it could be I jump on my Peloton bike for 30, 40 minutes. There are all these apps now readily available for people to work out in their homes, and I just don't think that there is any excuse not to work out at this point. It's going to be so good for you mentally and physically.
One of the things we hear about is people getting workout equipment, let's say a treadmill, and it collects dust, right? You use it for the first little while, but here's the deal. If you're going to be sitting on the couch watching a TV show for an hour, whatever it might be, why not even just go for a small, a walk, half of the show even, on the treadmill?
Absolutely. I have my best friend that lives in Los Angeles. She was really feeling like she just didn't want to work out. She was kind of slightly depressed. And I told her, I was like this, here's what I want you to do. Get a TV show that you've never seen before. I gave her a suggestion of one, and I was like, just get on there and walk on that treadmill of yours for, the length of the episode. It's a 30-minute show. So she started doing that, and it got to where she was watching, 2 episodes, and, it was just, a little bit of a change that just started the routine that I am so passionate about to tell people to do.
One of the tips that I've had, because I'm a cheapskate, even though we do have a treadmill, is, like you say, if you're watching a TV show, when the commercials come on, walk around the coffee table for that 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, that's, at least 20 minutes for a 1-hour show. I mean, that's going to make a difference, right?
At this point, I think getting up off of your sofa, doing anything, I'm going to be all for, because I think that it just, you start to get in that habit of sitting in front of the television, eating the chips, or whatever the case may be, and it really does affect your mental health. And right now, we need to be as mentally positive as possible.
What about tips for families? Not everybody has a big backyard to play in and you can't go to the park. What can mom and dad do? The kids are missing gym class. Do mom and dad get into the training clothes and lead a class at home? How can parents help the kids?
I'll tell you this. There are times where my fiance and I, out of nowhere, will just crank up the music and have a dance party. And I know that sounds really silly, but it makes us feel good. We laugh, we bond, and so it's I tell my best friend that I was talking about just earlier. They started doing that at right before or after dinner. I think it's after dinner. They just start. They all dressed up as Post Malone and whatever their kid's favorite music artist was, and they just started dancing around. And it was a way for them to just kind of reconnect at this time, and also to burn a few calories and let off some steam.
Bob, we need to do a Zoom video conference, because my Brazilian fitness model husband and I do the same thing with the dogs dancing in the basement. So we should link up and do that one night, okay?
I think it sounds great.
Let's talk about eating, though. We've stockpiled the groceries, all that we can, but it's so much easier to open that app and place a food order, though. How do we strike a balance?
Well, when I hear you wanting to order food in, I get very happy for those small businesses that really need your help. So I think that, like, creating a balance there is really important. When you do order in and you do all the necessary precautions, you're helping that small business, and I'm all for that. But those times where you're cooking and you're eating, you're having the food that you've brought in, make sure that you are not stockpiling your house with just a bunch of food that you know is not good for you. We all know what we should not be eating. And I know that nobody is going to be perfect right now, and I'm not asking you to be perfect, but what I'm asking for is for you to give it, your best try. Eating more whole foods, the produce at the grocery stores around me. I find that the produce section is really full. It's all the middle aisles that I want you to avoid in the first place. Those are the ones that are so empty.
You know what I find now, though, is that I'm not getting hungry as much. So what exactly, everybody's body is different, but what's the rule of thumb for eating? Should I eat even if I'm not hungry? It's, let's say it's lunchtime, I'm not hungry. Should I have something? What should we do? No.
At this point, I would say if you're not hungry, don't eat, because it's going to all balance out, throughout the course of the day. So, and I think that, and I've never been a person that promoted low carb eating. It's like I like to balance my macronutrients. At this point in life, I think that having lower complex carbohydrates could be a benefit, because if you are being more sedentary than you have been before the quarantine, then I think that focus more on lean proteins and vegetables, and try to get creative with it, because again, like, that sounds really boring, but my really good friend Rachel Ray, she and I were talking this morning about, like, doing a cooking segment, and she was like, I want to see what you're doing, so let's do something like that. I think it'd be really fun, because I don't want you to eat boring food. I don't eat boring food, but you've got to get creative.
So we've had lots of great advice from you just now, but let's summarize 3 quick tips for our COVID-19 lockdown.
3 quick tips. If you're not hungry, don't eat. Make sure that you are getting a lot of liquids. Drink a lot of water. And 3, practice social distancing, because you know what? It is so important. Just stay away right now so we can all get together later. And can I give one more tip, a really good one?
Sure.
One other tip is, we are at a time right now that we are spending so much time at home, and I am all for eating right and getting physical activity, but challenge your brain, learn something. Like, I've started a psychology class at Yale online that I'm super into. Read a book that you've never read before. Like, challenge your brain, because, I think that, if we go through this time and we don't really learn anything, what's the point? I'm all about learning every chance I can.
So one final question for you. I've got to cheat. One final question. What is your go-to dance track in lockdown? Your one song?
Oh, God. I mean, my go-to track, our dance party last night was Milkshake. We were dancing around to Milkshake.
Some songs are so true, though, too, right?
Yep.
You've always got great tips and information on your social media pages, so how can people stay in touch?
The main, it would be my Instagram page, and that is Bob Harper.
All right, our favorite fitness expert, Bob Harper, thanks so much for joining us today. Stay safe. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Mr. Entertainment himself is joining us on the line to talk about what he's watching, streaming, and listening to during lockdown. Ben Mulroney from CTV's E-Talk is on the line. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Darren. How you doing?
Everybody's good. It's actually kind of interesting because this is my radio anniversary week, and you always seem to be on when we're celebrating an anniversary, but this year is a little bit different.
It really is.
It's kind of weird.
I think I've been saying for a while now that I think we need to gravitate to those things in our day that remind us of sort of life before. And I think it's important to have a schedule so that you can sort of anchor yourself in the day. Otherwise, you're floating around with nothing to do, no one to be accountable to. And so the more things I can put in my schedule, the better I think I feel, and the more productive I am, the better a dad I am, the better husband I am, the better coworker I am. So I like staying busy these days, my friend.
So I have to know though, what's your ratio of like pajama time versus like fully clothed time?
No word of a lie. Since we went into quarantine, I have only been wearing sweatpants. I have not pulled. I wore jeans one day to the office, and I realized this is stupid, and I never did it again. I've been wearing sweatpants every day, and I'm looking forward to the day where I can take them and put them in a pile on the ground and look at them and thank them for their service, and then say, see you when I see you.
And I can't see you right now, Ben, but I'm guessing your hair is perfect as always, right? I mean, it's just...
Jeremy, it's getting... I mean, I gotta approach every morning with a game plan. Like, back when it's, after a fresh haircut, it's out of the shower, a little bit of pomade, and off I go. Mm-hmm. Now I have to look at it, and I gotta figure out what mood it's in. I got to figure how can I tame the beast? I've got wings coming up in different areas. In a couple of weeks, I'm gonna have to start using sort of like rebar to reinforce it, because this is becoming a little silly.
I'm now just styling it up. I'm just going like full on Reba McEntire 80s hair is what I'm doing.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I mean, mine is gonna start naturally feathering in a few weeks, which means if we ever do a retrospective on the 80s, I will be very much on brand.
Well, let me ask you, you mentioned the 80s. I've sort of lapsed into this retro TV viewing habit. So I'm talking, I dug out the old DVDs of, Golden Girls and Three's Company and the Jetsons. What are you watching when you've got that spare time now in lockdown?
So let's take the news off the table, which I do watch and listen to in the car all the time. For me, all that television is like an escape from the news. So there's a combination of things. My wife and I love our really bad reality TV, so we watch Vanderpump Rules and Summer House, and I think the Real Housewives of New York just came back. So all that stuff is just candy for the brain. It's a plug, but it's a fair plug. I'm watching my wife's show, I Do Redo, and Mary Berg's show, Mary's Kitchen Crush. I think those are just two great uplifting shows on a Sunday night. And every now and then I get in the mood to just explore Disney Plus or Netflix. I mean, look, I watched Too Hot to Handle from start to finish. I don't know if you've seen that. That is some next level reality TV. And other than that, we sort of move around on the dial or when we're streaming. I think there's a new show on Apple TV Plus called Home, which I think is really apropos these days, looking at incredible homes around the world by the people who did Chef's Plate. I'm at a point right now where we're both just really open to trying to find new shows. And whatever tickles our fancy or whatever we're curious about, we will try. But I should tell you, again, and this is not a plug, but the CTV app, it's got all those retro shows on it, huh? Mm-hmm. You don't have to pull out your DVDs anymore. It's all there.
Well, and it was only several years ago that people would scroll through 400 channels and complain there was nothing on. Now we're appreciating having that.
Yeah, you're completely right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and speaking of CTV, of course, we had your friends Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz on our show just moments ago, too, so another plug for CTV programming, right?
Wow, yeah, wow. What were they talking about?
Well, you weren't tuned in, Ben. Wow. Of all the things he's streaming, everybody, he's not listening to this show. No, we had Dr. Phil talking about relationships and Dr. Oz talking about health. So, there's so many different areas right now when it comes to fitness at home or finances and pets and parenting. The possibilities even there are endless, thanks to all the specialty networks, too.
Yeah, you're right. And I should mention, you asked what we're getting up to. We got a dog, Chair. I've been waiting 10 years, and my wife finally gave in and allowed me to get a dog. And so we've got a new dog. Her name is Miss Bruce Wayne, and she's keeping us very busy. We go out for walks all day long, keeping the kids active, and teaching them a little responsibility, which I think they need, and giving them a little project on how to care for something else. In quarantine, I think is an important lesson to learn right now, and she's just so funny.
Oh, well, I mean, that's the thing. It totally changes the dynamic of a house, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. She brought. Well, listen, this was a house full of love. Mm. She brought even more into this house. We love every second of it.
Yeah, it's and I think for us, for me, I've got two dogs. One actually just walked in the room beside me here. Is that once we get back to work and everybody's into the swing of things, that's where I'm going to have that guilt and feel bad because we're leaving all day again.
Oh, I know, but I don't think that's happening for a while, Jeremy. I think my brother-in-law is an epidemiologist at Harvard, and he thinks this is. I mean. I think realistically we're maybe at the midpoint or just past the midpoint of life that resembles this more closely than it resembled life before. I don't think we're leaving home anytime soon.
Okay. Well, now back to entertainment, though. I mean, we saw the big TV networks move up season finales to April, right? Usually it's May, and that's when you have sweeps and the finales. But they had to pause their production schedules. We just had Jocko Sims on a couple weeks ago from New Amsterdam, and they called it the final episode of the season, not the season finale. Big difference. But they had to stop where they were, of course. So what do you see happening in TV and entertainment in May and then through the summer with none of these shows in production?
So I think that when word of the coronavirus first started popping up, I think people tried to figure out how can we keep doing what we're doing all while living with this virus. And then when we realized the scope of what it entailed, I think everybody became far more practical almost overnight and realized, nope, we got to shut down sports, we got to shut down parks, we've got to shut this down and shut that down. Production has to end. And I think everybody has just made peace with it. I mean, it is screwed with a lot of schedules. It has cost a lot of people sort of in the content game a lot of time and a lot of money. But I think everybody appreciates that's not the gauge that we should be paying attention to. And so I think a lot of companies are just saying, no, this is the way it is, and this is what we've got to do. And the shows that I love that maybe had to end early, I don't know that I'm lamenting that because our minds turn to those frontline workers, and we say that they're doing that for us. So let's just take a beat on how dramatic, how the passion with which we love our shows. Let's appreciate that we're home together. Let's appreciate that we're healthy and happy, and we will get back to something else soon, and we can get back to a time where these things were the most important things of our day. But for now, they're not. So we'll just appreciate what we got.
Yeah, and we both cover entertainment news. It was interesting when this whole thing started was that there was a ton of news all at once, right? This show was canceled. This concert was canceled. The talk shows got rid of the studio audiences. Then there was a bit of a lull. And then when the entertainment world shut down, it got really quiet. And then it's slowly starting to pick up again now with these different online challenges and benefit concerts. So we're seeing some really good things come from the entertainment world right now, too.
Well, our show has become E-Talk at Home, and we shoot it every day from our respective homes, and it gets pieced together by an editor who is in their home. And at first, we were only doing very short digital versions of E-Talk at Home because we wondered how much content we would be able to get. Turns out we're actually getting longer and better interviews from the biggest stars around right now because they still want to talk. They have things they want to talk about, whether it's a project that they were working on or whether it's a philanthropic effort that they want to shine a light on. We're getting 15, 20 minutes with these guys in their homes. And I'm finding that the conversations that I'm having with these celebrities are more meaningful, they're more dynamic, they're more engaging than ever before. And I really hope that when we move into a post-COVID-19 world, that carries over, that we're all in this together mentality continues, where we're not, in the entertainment world, that the gatekeepers who are the publicists aren't constantly putting up roadblocks to protect their clients, and they realize, no, we actually had a really nice, friendly relationship during COVID-19 that we'd like to continue when this is all done. It's been tremendous, and also to see how much these celebrities care about what's going on. The fact that they are inviting people into their homes through IGTV and various other technologies. The fact that they are spending so much of their time performing for free for their fans or in these massive concert settings, raising hundreds of millions of dollars for the World Health Organization or for Food Banks Canada. This is tremendous to see. It's really heartening to see the power of celebrity leveraged for such social good.
Yeah, and like I mentioned already, we had Dr. Phil on, and he had agreed to 6 minutes with us, and we ended up going 17. And before we actually went on the air, I said, we'll plug your shows that you're doing from home and whatever. And he said, no, this is about your audience and what's going to help them. And 6 minutes with Dr. Phil to 17. You're right, exactly. He's more about doing a service now to help people and be there for everybody. So. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. I'm really finding, and it might have something to do with the fact that we're talking to them in their homes in most cases, where they just feel more comfortable. They're not coming to a studio.
Right.
They're not wearing their work clothes. They're not necessarily in that work frame of mind. But I'm hopeful that they are going to see that what they're getting from this side of the equation is still a professional interview done with respect and done with, a certain level of sort of ethical responsibility. And I really do hope that this ushers in sort of a more interactive relationship with these people that we cover.
Absolutely. Now, in our final remaining moments, you talk about doing shows from home. So tell me your thoughts on TV broadcast having to adapt. I mean, for decades, shows have been able to go live from remote areas and beam a perfect signal. Throw in a host having to operate a webcam, digital mess.
Yeah, no, I think we've noticed it both on Your Morning and E-Talk, where every week a different host on Your Morning broadcasts from home for that week, and every week we try something new. We now have teleprompter available at home. Lindsay, who's been at her family farm, was actually able for the first time this week to conduct remote interviews. So she's at her farm and she's talking to somebody who is Skyping into the studio. And so we're learning all of these new skills, which we are absolutely going to import in some way into the new normal when we all get back into the studio. I think audiences don't mind. I think we're seeing they don't mind a little bit of grit if it means they're going to get the story. And then with E-Talk, we are having so much fun doing this from home. I believe the show is as good as it's ever been, as informative as it's ever been. And I'm sure that when we get back to studio, there are going to be some some new tricks that we've been doing out of necessity in eTalk at home that we are going to be doing because we just like doing them when we get back in studio.
One other thing, I'm concerned about Marilyn Dennis. I believe she's probably just been drunk this whole time. Can you confirm? Have you heard from her? What's going on?
I saw Marilyn at the grocery store. I could barely make her out because we were both wearing our masks. But I can confirm that she was up early in the day doing grocery shopping. I did not smell alcohol on her, although, let's be honest, I wouldn't fault anybody these days if they were drinking in the middle of the day.
Well, she loves her cocktails on her show. We know that. Before I let you go, I have to know, who have you texted most recently, Meghan Markle or Justin Trudeau?
The last person I texted was my brother. My brother and I have an email chain or a text chain with a couple other people. We probably text each other 40 or 50 times a day, just exchanging information like news stories that we see. But in terms of anybody else, you'd have to ask them.
Oh, okay. Tight-lipped there. All right. Well, we're going to be watching the celebrity world through the lenses of eTalk, and this is actually time you get to go to Ben Mulroney's house. Not physically, right? Just from a safe distance. We'll be watching eTalk on CTV. Ben Mulroney, thanks so much for joining us. Stay safe.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks so much. You stay safe, too. And again, happy anniversary.
Well, thanks.
Take care, man.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on this supersized Scribble. Just catching my breath. This is a marathon. So if you've never listened to the Scribble podcast before, it's 30 minutes, basically 30 minutes on the dot every week. And so we are now in our fourth half hour. It's like we're running the frickin' Today Show. And I talk a lot, but this is a lot, so I just had to have some water. Coming up in this half hour, comedian Wendy Liebman joined me on the radio a few weeks ago, just when this whole coronavirus lockdown thing started. And I'm going to play you that because she's a very funny woman. I love her. We're going to do coffee next time I'm back in the Los Angeles area. But I figured it's not all gloom and doom. We want to have a good time. We want to have some laughs. And so I've got Wendy queued up for the segment that she did with us on the radio not too long ago. And Jocko Sims from NBC's New Amsterdam also was on the radio with us. And I think the cast did something incredible as they wrapped up their final episodes of the season, because it's a hospital show. Jocko's going to tell us exactly what they did with all of their props, right? They're props for a TV show. They are life-saving tools for those healthcare workers. And, of course, we want to thank them, right? It was Mark Cuban, wasn't it, that calls them death care workers because they're putting their lives on the line every day to help strangers, right? They're helping strangers live. And so I applaud you. I would start clapping right now, but it'll throw off our sound. But absolutely, we salute all of you. Now, it also does remind me of, it was actually just my grandma's 92nd birthday on the weekend, and she is in a care home. She's in a nursing home. And it's really kind of sad because, knock on wood, this isn't, her last birthday. That's not where I'm going with this. But it's incredibly sad because she's celebrating her birthday without, we're a big Ukrainian family, so I'm going to say at least 30 or 40 of her loved ones with her. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't been able to see her for about almost 2 months now. And, we did get a picture. The staff had a bit of a birthday party for her at the home, and we were able to send cards, and we sent a cake as well, but we weren't allowed to go up to her unit, to her area where she lives. So we did get a picture of the party, but it's just so incredibly sad, right? I could deal with it. I mean, I'm 37, and all right, so if I don't see people on my birthday, whatever. I'm in my house, right? I'm in my comfort zone. She's only been there for about a year now. But it's you're not with your family. And when you're 92 and that's what right, you have that comfort and you're surrounded by the loved ones. Now, it would kill me if this was Christmas, right? It would just absolutely kill me if we couldn't see her at Christmas. But, that's just the time that we're living in. So how are you dealing with seeing your family, not seeing your family? Quite honestly, I generally don't like being around people anyway, so this is actually kind of nice. Unless you're my cute, charming grandma. I love going and playing bingo with her. Why would I not? But I'm kind of liking the isolation and lockdown thing, because when I have had to go to the grocery store or, the bank or whatever it is, there's not crowds of people. You don't have the obnoxious screaming kids running around the stores. Like, people are being really responsible, at least where I live. I'm not sure if it's the same where you are. And so, yeah, like, I don't like shopping anyway, and so if I've got to go to the store, and I'm making it as quick as possible, but if I've got to go to the store, like, I don't want your kids crashing into me, and, I'm going to have to dodge the idiots that are just, slow moving and blocking the aisle with their carts and things like that. So this is actually, I'm sort of enjoying the not having a ton of people everywhere. So, anyway. But I'm just an old curmudgeon now at this point in my life. But I've got about a minute and a half. Today, this is really coincidental timing, is the 14th anniversary of my syndicated radio show called Top of the Charts. So I'm going to just take a quick walk down memory lane, because when that show started on internet radio 14 years ago, I never thought that I would be... Look at the star power we have on this show today. Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, Cesar Millan, the Dog Whisperer. I never thought these people would ever know who I am. And it's incredible, because on the studio wall behind me is, the Celebrity Apprentice red carpet. There's a picture of, Donald Trump. And I started out covering Canadian Idol, and then that moved to The Voice and American Idol and America's Got Talent and the TV Land Awards and the Comedy Central roasts. And, it's incredible that this kid who started out in his parents' basement in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, now travels in between West Hollywood and Winnipeg, and and mingles on red carpets with celebrities and gets piss-ass drunk at Hollywood events. Why not? So cheers to me. Maybe that whole rant was a little self-serving, but you know what? It's my show, damn it. And no, really the point of the story is, if you really have the drive to live the entrepreneurial life, and again, this sounds so cliche, but just don't let anything stop you. If you take no for an answer, you're not going to get anywhere. For me, when I take no, or if I hear no, that means that I'm going to go 4 other places to get a yes, and I'm going to prove you wrong, because I will get a yes. And so if we had more time to share, very quickly, there was a woman about 15 years ago when I was trying to be a newspaper columnist and I was sending out commentaries to papers across Canada. She said, "I think you should find a new career," as I was starting out. Isn't that nice? All right. We're going to get to our clip from Wendy Liebman on the radio with me right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
There's so much craziness in the world right now. I thought we need some laughs and to appreciate comedy. So Wendy Liebman is joining us now, I think from her coronavirus bunker, right? Hi, Wendy.
I'm hunkering down. Yes.
We'll talk about comedy in a second. But are you freaked out? Like, what's this whole thing doing to you?
You know, what's freaking me out are the supermarkets, because I was there yesterday and the line was so long that I ate half of the food that I was going to pay for before I got to the checkout. But no, we just need to all just take a breath. And
I was going to say, well, we can't take a breath. That's the problem, Wendy. We get everybody's germs then.
Last year I was hit by a car. I'll do anything to get out of having sex. But, so I was home for a long time. I was home for 9 months. So I'm used to being home. Yeah, so this is not new to me. But I think we're just all in a big panic because we don't know what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. Well, the good thing about being from home is that you can use your credit card. Oh, no, wait, you had plastic surgery, I heard.
Exactly, but I do have my husband's credit card.
I know your act, yeah. Wendy. I know your act. I do.
Thank you. That's an old joke that I forgot that I had.
Well,
but I haven't performed in a long time because I was hit by a car. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
I was hit by a car. I was just walking just minding my own business, walking along my treadmill, and it's weird doing comedy with an audience of one. But you know what? I grew up performing into the mirror, so this is nothing new to me.
But this is the thing. All of those late night shows, right? There's no audience right now, so they are. I mean, they're performing for their staff, and of course, the staff is laughing because they want to keep their jobs, right?
Well, exactly. I performed on America's Got Talent in 2014, and one of the rounds we just performed for the judges, so it was just 4 people laughing, and what helped was the crew would laugh sometimes. So if you made the crew laugh, you were in. So yeah, it is challenging, but hey, we're all making changes to our lives, so
yeah.
That includes shopping online.
Absolutely. No, actually, let's stick with late night though for a second, because I remember seeing you on The Late Show with David Letterman, and you were also on with Carson. How long were you doing comedy before you got those opportunities?
Jeremy, are you asking me how old I am?
No, of course not. But the fact that I'm old enough to remember also says something too.
Well, you used to sneak out of your mother's womb to watch me on TV. That was in 1991, May 10th. I was on Carson, and I'd been doing comedy for 6 years before that, which then was like sort of a short amount of time. But you see the comedians now, and they're getting so, it's almost like they're on steroids because they advance so quickly now. They get really good really fast, like Hannah Binder and Taylor Tomlinson. Yeah, they're just amazing.
We've heard the stories about the legendary opportunity when you're performing on Carson's show. If he calls you over, whatever. What does that do to your mind before you go out there on stage? Does that freak you out? Does it excite you? What was going through your mind?
The whole thing is kind of surreal at that time, so I don't even know if I was thinking about that at that time. Like, I just wanted to get through my set without forgetting a joke,
right?
And not faint. And he did give me like the A-OK sign, but apparently it didn't get seen by the TV audience, so that kind of bummed me out. But I don't know. I think it might have changed my life if I had gotten called over to the couch, but it still changed everything changes your life in some way. So I was just really excited to be on the show and not faint during my set.
Okay,
we're talking 1991. I mean, this is years ago.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. How did you come up with your style and delivery? Because it's very unique.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I think I just didn't like being on stage when I would get a laugh, and then there would be silence, and they didn't like that part, so I would just keep talking. So I kept adding taglines, and somebody described it as the California stop. Like, you don't really stop at the stop sign, you
That's
just
right.
keep going through it.
Right.
I describe my style like that. I don't know if that's accurate.
And I think that we see people...
I think I sound like I have the virus right now. I feel very throaty.
You remember when the biggest fear was getting a virus on your computer, though, right? You were worried about losing solitaire and stuff like that?
I know. Now, my husband and I are practicing social distancing, and
see,
we've been doing that for a while.
I was going to say, look at this. Coronavirus is actually saving relationships, everybody. Look at this. Jeez.
Somebody also said that, well, there are going to be a lot of corona babies.
Oh, I guess. Well,
yeah.
Not supposed to be touching people, though. That's the thing. Let's talk about locally grown comedy, because you're giving local artists a great platform to showcase their comedy, right?
Well, for 6 years now, I've been running the show at a restaurant, which is semi-famous, because I don't know if you remember the story with Robert Blake and how he shot his wife in the parking lot when he went back to get his gun at the restaurant. Well, this is the restaurant. And it was up for sale, and somebody bought it. The real estate agent who was selling it said, we can't sell the Vitello. It's kind of a landmark. Anyway, I lived around the corner from that, and I was walking by, and I thought, wow, what if I could just do a show here? And I walked in, and I asked, and that was 6 years ago. And since then, I've had everybody on my show, from Nikki Glazer to George Lopez to Tig Notaro, Arsenio Hall, Joe Coy, Orny Ad. I'm not going to list them all, but like hundreds of comedians, Anthony Jeselnik, Eliza Schlesinger, Carol Leifer. Should I keep going?
Well, I mean, if you'd like,
So
yeah.
anyway, each comedian gets about between 10 and 30 minutes, and it's just been a really great showcase for the best comedy in town. There are a few comedians that I still am trying to get, Sarah Silverman, and yeah, but I love doing it, and I host the show until I get hit by the car,
Right.
and then I would have like a guest host, somebody like Jimmy Brogan or Fritz Coleman, Karen Montowski, yeah. So everybody in town who's done the show except Sarah Silverman, please do my show.
Well, what you need to do is you need to stock up on you know, the toilet paper, the sanitizer, and send her a gift basket, maybe.
Well, apparently it's on a Tuesday night, because I wanted the show to be a night that comedians were home and weren't on the road. Tuesday always seems to be that night.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently she has a standing basketball game on Tuesday nights. So, but it's a monthly show.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, I know that you also took to
That
the
is a
stage.
good idea, though, Jeremy.
Well-
I get like a hand sanitizer.
Well,
I don't understand why people are buying the toilet paper, though.
No, I
I
don't.
don't get that part, except that maybe we all fear that we're going to run out of that.
I don't know. I mean, that's not gonna save your life, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like, water, I understand. Canned goods, sure. Toilet paper wouldn't be on my priority list of, you know, I guess literally, oh crap.
What are you stocking up on? Right, exactly. What are you stocking up on?
Nothing. This is where I'm probably going to get letters. I'm looking at this discount airfares right now. I'm not to anywhere like foreign or anything, but I mean like domestic travel and things like that. I mean the airlines are slashing prices like crazy.
And you could get tickets to see Hamilton really easily. Although they
No.
shut down Broadway now, right?
You're not allowed to do anything anymore, Wendy. That's the problem.
Well, so we'll have to make a home movie.
Well, let me ask you about that though. I mean, streaming services are so common now. You've been doing comedy shows in person for years. Are you finding that fewer people are coming to comedy shows and just watching things online? What's been your experience?
I think over the years, people tend to stay home more and more. And hopefully, maybe this will make it so that people realize that they want to go out.
Right.
Because they're not allowed to.
Yeah. Be rebels.
But when I was home for the 9 months, I did watch a lot of TV, everything from Mrs. Maisel to Downton Abbey. Right now I'm watching The Unicorn. I'm binging on that. You know, when I was growing up, we didn't have binge watching, so we just had to eat. Yesterday I did binge. I basically ate my weight in white cheddar cheese Cheez-Its.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sometimes my husband stocked up on cans of tuna fish and vodka. So we're all set.
That's what you're hoarding? That's what your pantry is full of. Wow. Good to know. Good to know. And here's the thing is that when you're on...
You're the best laugher. You're the best laugher. Can you come to my comedy Can you come to locally grown comedy?
Can I wear a plastic suit kind of a thing? Can I sit in a special section or yeah? Okay.
I did just postpone this month. We had Ron Punches, and it was going to be on March 31st, but who knows what's going to be happening then? So I just postponed it today.
Well, maybe I can make that one. Ron was on our show several years ago, I guess, for Undateable when NBC was doing a radio tour. So maybe I'll have to see our friend again. Yeah. And here's the thing, though, is that when you're on stage, you're that safe distance away from people. It's the suckers in the audience that are sitting beside each other and that are in trouble, right?
Yes and no, but I have to tell you. So I was in bed for, getting my leg. What happened was they fixed my leg.
Right.
Because it was broken. But it was put on wrong.
Okay.
I'm not making it up. My leg was put on wrong, so my foot was pointing out. So I had to have my leg rebroken. Anyway, that's why it took so long for me to heal. But the first time I performed again, I performed in a little club, and I swear I got sick from the microphone. Like, you talking to a microphone for a job.
Yeah.
Sometimes the microphone smells. I know that's disgusting, but that's really what happened. And I got sick from it.
What did it smell like?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
When I'm performing, yes, I'm 6 feet away from people, but I'm 1 inch away from the microphone.
Right. What did it smell like? Let me smell my... I'm the only one that uses mine, though, so I'm okay. But what did yours smell like?
Just bacteria.
Oh.
I'm not gonna get graphic. It didn't smell good.
Not like Cheez-Its, though. That is a smell you love.
You know what? If it was Cheez-Its, I'd be fine with that. My dog's paws smell like Fritos. I don't know if that's a common thing, but...
Okay.
We got dogs called Jindos.
Okay.
Have you heard of those dogs? They're from Korea.
I have not. I've seen yours, yeah.
Rescued from a Korean meat market because they literally were going to be food.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so cute in the pictures, which is why we got them. They are lovable dogs, but they have literally eaten every one of their beds. They're terrorizing.
Yeah.
But they're so cute. They're so cute. Jindos.
No, I'll have to look that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we need to wrap this up, but where can people get more information about the comedy showcase that you're featuring?
Well, I'm on Twitter. I followed you on Twitter today, and I saw you followed me back. I'm so excited.
I did, yeah.
It's Wendy Liebman, Liebman. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and I just realized I was on LinkedIn for the past 20 years. But yes, I'm at wendyliebman.com as well.
All right. Well, it has been so great chatting with you. Remember to spray down the phone when we're done, okay? Just do that.
It's in a plastic bag right now. So.
All right. Wendy Liebman, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on this supersized Scribble. And again, I appreciate you tuning in at isolationlounge.com. And it's brought to you by Happy Bulge Swim Company, the sexiest men's swimwear that shows off your bulging assets. It's not just about looking good, it's also about feeling good. Check out the latest men's swimwear and workout shorts at happybulge.com. Browse, shop, and smile with Happy Bulge Swim Company at happybulge.com. Your man parts will thank you. All right, you know the show New Amsterdam on NBC? Ding, ding, dong. Well, Jocko Sims joined me on the radio a couple of weeks ago to talk about the final episode of the season. Now, this is a hospital show in New York. They film it, and it's really true to life in some points, because this whole coronavirus thing, Jocko, playing somebody, a doctor who works in a hospital, I think has a new appreciation for what patients are going through and what doctors are going through, those healthcare workers, those frontline people who are basically saving the day. And so I'm going to throw to a clip. I wanted to play for you the segment that we had on the radio a couple of weeks ago, because not only does he now appreciate what everybody goes through in a time of crisis like this, but it's incredible what the production of the show did with their hospital equipment. So I'm going to throw to me with Jocko Sims from NBC's New Amsterdam. Have you been asked to jump in on the coronavirus relief? Like, are you standing by for the local hospitals or anything?
Gosh, I've found myself quite invested emotionally in what has been going on. The cool thing is, from the beginning, New Amsterdam and myself, we've been involved as much as we can. The first thing we did was we got all of our equipment, our masks, and our personal protective equipment and gear that we have on the show, which is the real deal. We took all that gear and we donated to the hospitals here in New York City. And we have some friends that are on the front lines. We have Dr. Jeff, who is one of our advisors on set. He's right there with me side by side in our scenes. He's been working at Bellevue Hospital for 28 years. We have Lisa Wing, who is the head nurse there at Bellevue, and we've been in touch with them daily, hearing about the situation. So that's the first thing. And also, we've been attempting to try to facilitate getting masks from other countries over here to the hospitals, because the situation has been quite dire. But it's a daily thing, and it's been interesting, and not in a good way, to see how that process has been.
Well, absolutely. I mean, so many tragic stories coming out of it, but as you're saying, so many great stories coming out, right? People coming together to help and really build a sense of community. It's really great to see.
Absolutely, and that's cool. In times like this is when people come together, and it's unfortunate that it takes events like this sometimes to bring us together, but such is life, where we need a reminder that we are one people, and we need to rely on each other to move the human race forward.
When you were last on with us, we talked about how you pick up, medical lingo, and you really start to understand what these doctors and healthcare workers go through. So I can imagine now with this whole crisis, this global health crisis, you have a new appreciation for what the doctors are going through, and probably also that you see the patient side, because you've also kind of had these real life experiences that you've acted through that are kind of playing out right before our eyes.
100%. And what's interesting is our show is about getting through that red tape and that bureaucracy of attempting to actually help the patient. And here in real life, as I've attempted to try to get some masks and some personal protective gear, aside from the ones from New Amsterdam, we got that easily through to the hospitals. But I personally have been attempting to get some things done, and there's a lot of things in the way, steps and forms, and I'm just like, gosh, people are dying. Nurses are quitting because they don't have enough gear. And so I'm getting a taste of what our characters go through weekly. People don't think about how difficult it is to get something done in the medical world. When you have, as a patient, you go in and you struggle with whatever ailment you have in the first place. And then if your insurance won't cover something, or the doctors seem a little bit not human when it comes to relating to, it's because they're going through so much, and they hurt when they're trying to get things done and they can't. So I know what it's like now to have my hands tied in the medical business.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on this supersized Scribble, and I thank you for tuning in on your favorite podcast app or at isolationlounge.com. And it's been brought to you by Happy Bulge Swim Company, the sexiest men's swimwear that shows off your bulging assets. It's not just about looking good, it's also about feeling good. Check out the latest men's swimwear and workout shorts at happybulge.com. Browse, shop, and smile with Happy Bulge Swim Company at happybulge.com. Your man parts will thank you. And I thank you, not for my man parts, but I thank you for tuning in. Special thanks to all of our celebrity friends who joined us and really gave some great, useful information, tips, and conversation as we all get through this isolation and coronavirus. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. I'll talk to you next time. Stay safe, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,